I've just finished reading this book, Soho, The Heart of Bohemian London. Now, I was actually buying other books and I saw this on the approach to the counter in, I think it was Waterstones in Soho, or it might be deemed just outside Soho. Now, I love this book. Firstly, I love Soho. I never understood what it was about Soho, and probably I still don't. But there's nowhere on earth I feel more at home than I felt in Soho. This book tells a bit about the history of Soho, and it is fascinating. I mean, the people who've passed through there: Charles Dickens, Joseph Conrad, Karl Marx, royalty, Leicester Square. Before it was Leicester Square, it used to be called Leicester Fields, and people like the Prince of Wales used to hang out there, and it was very, very posh and very, very aristocratic. And then immigrants started going there, so the biggest immigrant community in the beginning of the 20th century, the 1900s, were actually the Germans, but they were well assimilated because a lot of them married English women. They were largely male Germans. Then after that you had the Italians, the first restaurants. The whole idea of a restaurant was very, very foreign. People in the UK tended to eat in inns and pubs, but a restaurant that you went to just for food, that was an idea brought to the UK by foreigners, like many of the things in the UK. And they first established in Soho, where you could eat a whole variety of unknown cuisines at reasonable prices. And then, most of the world looked down on Soho, the established world, because it was prostitutes and sleazy nightlife and things which were deeply frowned upon. I mean, Oscar Wilde used to frequent it, and he ended up losing everything, losing his children, losing his children's toys, losing his marriage, because he was homosexual. But in Soho, that was fine. It talks about the characters in Soho, the streets in Soho. For example, Berwick Street, which is the cover of which is the Oasis album, where they're walking across the road. That's in Berwick Street, because it used to be famous for record stores. It used to also be a market. There were 99 businesses on there in the early 20th century. It talks about the different people who've been there. So the Jewish immigrants who were basically from the East End but moved there and were generally in the rag trade. They never really recovered after the after the war. The Germans never really recovered after the First World War. Really fascinating. I love this book. I'll probably read it again, and it's quite a short book. It's only 170 odd pages, but there's lots of maps and illustrations. It talks about the famous people who became famous, really, because they set up clubs there and bars there and everything else. Really great book, really easy read, thoroughly enjoyed it. I'll give it an easy 7 out of 10. I'd give it 9 out of 10 if I knew everybody loved Soho like I love Soho, but not everybody does. So this van is about to hit my car. Oh no, it hasn't. That's okay. Anyway, it's self-isolation in the UK, so I'm getting a lot of reading done, which is good. Hopefully this won't last too long. I don't want us to go the same way as Italy, but that's not really relevant to the discussion of the book. It's a history book. It talks about so many fascinating things. The 1957 Street Offences Act took prostitutes off the street in Soho. Soho's always been known for prostitution. One of the commentaries in there is the 1957 Act forced prostitutes into the hands of pimps, where they are more easily exploited. Interesting point. I don't know what you think of prostitution, or whether they're evil, immoral women. I don't think so. Look, if people are doing a profession by their own choice, then let them do it. What's the difference between a prostitute and a footballer? Nothing. People pay to go to see them both. Except footballers now. Apparently there's this big movement where footballers are really pissed off, and they're all considering legal action because they've been asked to take a 25% pay cut. Where else are you going to make that kind of money? Just greedy, young. Never mind. That's a different discussion. I love the way that before all this, the press loved to bash the CEOs of, say, Fortune 500 or whatever you call it. Large companies. Oh, they're greedy. They're this. They're that. They're immoral. They're fat cats. A lot of them make about the same money as footballers. How come you don't go after the footballers? Because the CEOs will provide usually employment for at least 100 or more people. The footballers don't do that. Anyway, different discussion again. Back to the book. Fascinating. Virginia Woolf, Joseph Conrad, Charles Dickens, Winston Churchill. They all loved Soho. I love Soho. There's actually something in there about there were barriers put up outside some theatre lots of famous theatres in Soho, obviously, and the barriers were designed to make it harder for prostitutes to mingle with the crowd. So somebody called Winston Churchill led a charge to knock down the barriers. It's a great book. I really loved it. If you like Soho, if you're interested in Soho, I think it's one of the most fascinating places on earth. Then read the book. It talks in the end about how Soho may lose its unique character through gentrification. I'd hate for that to happen. Soho's a place where the ordinary Londoner goes when they want to feel devilish. That's a quote from here as well. I'm not sure about feeling devilish, but certainly it's one of the greatest places on earth. There you go. I've had my piece. It's a great book. You should read it. A 7 out of 10 if you're a Soho fan like me. 10 out of 10. Easy read, very entertaining, informative. I'll probably read it again. And it is by, who's it by? It's by Peter Spicer, who's a historian. In fact, he's a senior lecturer in history at the University of Westminster. There you go. Check it out. Great book. Hope you enjoyed the review.